So yesterday, I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. My blood pressure was through the roof, and I was hurling myself off the Trump train. This only a week after I abused my friend Ann Coulter for such sentiments. Apparently, you were way ahead of me on this one, and actually, you've been ahead of me by 6-7 months on this one. What happened to our guy?
I think everything we thought about, and of course you still had to support him, as some Rubio supporters have been taunting me. You should title your column "Why I Should Have Voted for Marco," and I replied to them, I'm mad at Trump for doing the things Marco promised to do.
Right.
We had absolutely no choice, and although I do think we got everything about Trump right, he does have one huge Achilles heel. I don't think there's much you can do about it, and that is his desperation to be accepted by the New York swells and the sophisticated crowd, the New York Times. Incidentally, and I'm not saying this in an insulting way, I think it has been misportrayed in the media, this Michael Wolff book is fantastic. You can discount, every 10, 20 pages there will be something that's just, nasty and I don't believe, although I'm sure he's quoting someone who said it. But it's very, besides being a fun read, it's really very insightful, and a lot of it you sort of knew anyway, including Trump's obsession with being liked by the fancy people. As soon as he got elected, although Rupert Murdoch had been totally against him, as was well known, and Ailes had been a lifelong friend, he dumped Ailes, moved on to Murdoch. Even after Ailes died, according to the book, he didn't call Beth Ailes, Roger Ailes' wife. Similarly, and I know this from friends of mine at the New York Times, Trump calls Maggie Haberman every day. Every day. He is desperate for good coverage from the New York Times. And you may recall, I think it was within the first month after he was elected, I wrote a column warning Trump. There had been a description how he had met with the New York Times editors and writers, and when he walked into the room, he shakes Frank Bruni's hand. He's an op-ed columnist and, incidentally, a friend of mine, and said, "You're going to write good stuff about me. You're going to see." And I sensed it then, and warned him, Mr. President-elect, you have two choices. You can do what you promised. You can be a great president, or you can impress the New York Times. You cannot do both.
Right.
But he really does want to impress the New York Times. I also think it's true, although I didn't mention Bannon in the rest of the article, it was just the title. It turns out that Bannon really was Trump's brain. I don't even think, I mean, I like some things about Bannon. I don't like other things. Won't bother going into it. But without him there, the other part of this book that we've all been worried about, and it's just in more vivid relief in this book and lots of details from someone who was just sitting there in the White House, with Bannon gone, the family is ascendant. You see so many problems in chapter after chapter. It is true that all of the bad advice he's getting has been coming from the Javanka crew, starting with, the biggest mistake of his presidency, firing Comey. That was 100% Jared and Ivanka pushing for it because they were worried Comey would get into family business. They're up at the Bedminster Club, and they're pushing. Bannon and Priebus, incidentally, heavily on the other side, saying no, trying to distract him, put it off. Getting into process disputes, and then out of the blue he fires Comey, and that's why he gets his special prosecutor, which is going to make the rest of his presidency a living hell. But, I mean, look at the other. What other advice has he gotten from Jared? Fire Comey, hire Scaramucci, back Luther Strange. There was some other disastrous advice. And look, Jared and Ivanka are probably lovely people and not stupid people. I'm not saying any of that, but it would be like me, if my brother suddenly became CEO of a clothing manufacturing, going in and saying, well, I'm going to tell you where we're going to make these shoes, Ivanka, and this is how we're going to design them, and then we'll go to Macau and then transship to China. This just isn't their bag. I heard on the news today And I'm just about to finish the Michael Wolff book, so this is all in my head. I hear today that, there's a big meeting at the White House with Jared running his prison reform group.
Oh, I know. He might need that reform to take place.
No, but I've spent a lot of time on prison reform. I've worked on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Not a lot of time, but there are certain interests. People know a lot about this. There's a lot to be known, and who's on which side. The opium crisis. Bring in Sam Quinones, the author of Dreamland. There are people who know what they're talking about, but this is just it's like a joke bringing in your kids.
Yeah, well, and there's just too much of what people saw, and I heard lots of radio hosts yesterday defending him. I mean, some people have become such a cheerleader that it scares me, because they have usually been pretty reasonable and sound in their discussions, and they've lost. I'm tired of hearing how this was done for the optics to undo the Michael Wolff book. I wasn't paying any attention to the Michael Wolff book.
Right.
He got my attention with this stupid, invitation for the media to come in and look at him cozying up to a Dianne Feinstein, who basically said, "We'll get what we want, you'll get nothing." And he said, "Okay."
Yeah, I'll sign whatever you send to me.
Because I trust you guys so much.
Also acknowledge, sorry to keep giving like a book report here, but I'm giving a book report on the things that confirm the things we already thought. This gives a lot more detail and quotes. It's just, simply acknowledge that the family, the Javanka side, which he incorrectly calls Jarvanka. I've never heard anybody say that. Everybody says Javanka. Anyway. That they're liberal Democrats from New York, and one interesting point Wolff makes is that everybody in the White House is looking at the next step. I mean, this is a point I've been making separately about Trump and Sessions, Department of Justice. Instead of clearing out the swamp, they're just moving the pieces around, moving different parts of the swamp into different places. And the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, for example, I was complaining to a bunch of Federalist Society heads and leaders and saying, why listing 20 other lawyers with better or at least as good credentials who would have been better for the job. And they said somberly to me, "Oh, no, he's a great guy who's president of the Federalist Society at Harvard." Well, okay, that's great, but he has been he's worked for the government his entire life.
Right.
If Trump serves 8 years, it's still just 8 years, and then all these people have to go back and work with the rest of the swamp. So what's their interest? They have an interest in pleasing the swamp. Similarly, that's my point. Now to Wolff's point, he says Dina Powell, Gary Cohn, the Goldman Sachs people, and the Javanka wing, they're looking at proving to their liberal friends, we turned him into a Rockefeller Republican. We made him, don't worry, there won't be a wall. And there really isn't a lot of pushback on the other side.
None.
But I mean, he's got to understand that he's on the precipice, and he is looking at a choice right now. He can go down in history as America's greatest president, as the man who saved America from certain end. I mean, it'll be some other country. We'll still have the North American landmass here, but
right.
It won't be America anymore. Or he can go down as the man who was the final one to drop the guillotine on the country. If he keeps his campaign promises, which, as I point out in the column, he's sold us out before and we brought him back, but we are in year 2 here,
right.
And there's no wall, and he just spent all day Tuesday saying that he wants amnesty. Mm-hmm. He's done it before, but how many are we ever going to get? It's just starting to look like the most we can hope for is not an immediate execution.
Right, no deal. That's the most I can hope for, is that they don't come up with a deal. But I already got Jeff Flake announcing that they've got a deal. And if it's coming out of Jeff Flake's mouth, we're screwed. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, if he keeps his campaign promises, Nothing else matters.
No,
no
I
one
agree.
cares about the Russia investigation. It's boring and it's nonsense. And every time the media, once every 2 months, I'll look into it to see what's going on, and I just get angry at the media for making me do it. It is so boring and stupid, and it's such nonsense. No one cares about Russia. No one cares. I mean, he could hire his entire family. He could make them, ambassadors to St. James Court. Nobody cares. Just build the wall and deport illegals.
That's right. And
don't start another war.
Well, I don't know that he's going to start another war, but all this stuff, certainly the promises that he made to people like you and me, directly to people like you and me. I'm not talking about campaign speeches that he gave at rallies where he gets all pumped up by the crowd yelling, build a wall, but by conversations that he had on this program that he's had with you, where he said, look, this is my path to victory was through this particular subject. And to
remember you used to say that to the Angel Moms. Yeah. I had them on, God bless them for putting them on stage. I mean, that campaign was the most magnificent campaign. Anyway, he'd have them on stage with him and say, I will never forget you. He told Jamil Shah, I will never forget you. I will not let you down.
Right.
He's letting them all down. And for what? So that that Jared and Ivanka won't be snubbed in the Hamptons?
Yeah, well, listen, they're going to be snubbed anyway. They're
No, I know. That's the crazy thing about this whole strategy of turning Trump into a Rockefeller Republican. Not going to happen.
No.
They're never going to like Donald Trump. It is not possible. At least when Schwarzenegger turned, well, he was married to a Kennedy.
Right.
He was a big actor. He was a cool cat. Okay, you sell out. And by the way, he started quite strong, unlike
he did.
presidents I could name.
Right.
He started out really strong. He was trying to do what he promised to do, got shot down, and then decided, screw it, I'm just going to be a Democrat. Okay, they'll welcome him back. Mm-hmm. They are never going to welcome the outer borough kid from Queens.
No, that's absolutely true. And again, he had a base that had mobilized and was really going to propel the people in the 2018 midterm election to victory as well. Now that's shot, because those guys also ran on a platform, especially some of these, conservative caucus guys, ran on a wall, ran on repealing Obamacare, and neither one of those things happened.
The only good news about this election cycle is Republicans are unlikely to lose the Senate only because who happens to be up for re-election this year. I think there are only a couple Senate seats that are even in areas that could possibly ever, I don't know if there are any, whereas there are a fair number of Democrats in states that went for Trump, and a lot more Democrats up for re-election this year just by the luck of the draw. So the odds of losing the Senate are somewhat low, but if there's a capitulation on amnesty, he'll be wiped out in the House.
He will be wiped out. I agree with you. And I think at the state level, in many of these governor, races, I mean, you got a Republican governor right now in Missouri who's apparently, tied up his mistress, and, they're starting to fall.
Oh, good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic.
It's great. Just what we needed, right? What is it? Eric Greitens, and who, by the way, is a former Navy SEAL and is not looking good there. And I see that in a couple of different governors' races. We're going to have a hotly contested governor's race here, and it's contingent upon Trump. I want Ron.
And at least when Obama got wiped out after passing Obamacare, they got Obamacare.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
We haven't gotten anything.
Right. Well, we got a tax bill, but it's mediocre. It's not what I wanted.
Any Republican, he has not done anything that Jeb ! Wouldn't have done. We got a tax cut, and we got a good guy on the Supreme Court. Rubio, Jeb ! Kasich, they all would have done the exact same thing. We have not gotten anything we voted for.
No, and the insanity of using the term love after he made fun of Jeb Bush for that. I mean, whose idea was that? Oh, God.
No, the idea of having that televised to show Because, the big thing he was arguing, or he was trying to prove against the book is, and actually I haven't gotten to as far as the very end, apparently, that all these people on the record saying, we may have to invoke the 25th, I mean, you've heard this in the media,
right.
We may have to invoke the 25th Amendment. He's senile, he's losing it, he's got Alzheimer's, so he's going to prove he's not senile by putting on this performance,
right.
showing him utterly out of touch, not understanding what people are saying to him, having no grasp of the facts, no leadership, and, by the way, slightly senile. Yeah. That was great. Good idea.
Yeah. Well, listen, like you said, it's the people around him, the last voice in his ear. I knew a politician like that once, and he lasted one term. That
was the weird thing, to see it in real time during that meeting, where you'd agree with one person and then somebody else jumps in, now suddenly hardliner on immigration,
Andy
Kevin
McCarthy, yeah.
And he agrees with him, too.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. And it gives us way too much to lose sleep over, but... for me, it's an easy radio program to do every single day because I'm always mad. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. We got the article linked up at our website, The Great Ann Coulter. Hey, take it easy. Your blood pressure.
Good to talk to you, Joyce. Bye-bye.
All right, and bye-bye. All right, we got to take a break because Hobo's losing it.